I reached my parents' house just after dark. The wind off Lake Erie cut through my coat, the kind that smelled faintly of metal and snow. Inside, the table was already set china polished, candles lit. My father sat at the head with the store ledger open beside his plate. "You missed the acrylic shipment last month," he said without looking up. "The supplier's been calling. I don't work for the store anymore." "Dad." I set the casserole down, careful not to meet his eyes. "You still handle the orders," he said flatly. Before I could answer, my brother Ryan strode in, all cologne and confidence. Guess who just got back from Austin Business Workshop? Total game changer. Mom smiled, tension in her shoulders. "Your father and I covered the fee. It was an investment." I laughed once. "An investment? That workshop cost what? $4,000. I'm the one paying your utilities. And he's watch your tone." Dad snapped. "Your brother's trying to expand the brand." "The brand," I said. "I'm the one who kept it from collapsing. I sent money every month while Dad's fork hit the table." "That's enough. Ryan's the face of this family. You just work behind the scenes. That's how it's always been." Ryan grinned, pouring himself wine. "Someone has to carry the legacy," Mom whispered. "Please, not tonight. Let's just eat." I stood, my pulse loud in my ears. "You want legacy? Then pay your own bills. I'm done." Dad's voice was low, deliberate. "You walk out that door. Kara, don't bother coming back." For a second, nobody moved. Then I pushed my chair in, slow and neat. Guess that makes it easy for everyone. I took my coat, keys, and left. The screen door clicked behind me, not slammed, just final. The house stayed silent, even as the wind rose, scattering pine needles across the porch. I didn't look back. I was 12 when Dad first called me the reliable one. It happened behind the store counter on a Saturday. He handed me the register key and said, "Ryan's better with people. You handle the math. Ryan, 14 then." Leaned on the counter, tossing a paintbrush like a drumstick. "Means you get to stay inside while I talk to customers," he said, grinning. "Means I do twice the work," I muttered. Dad didn't hear or pretended not to. That's what family is. Kara. Everyone does their part. Mom appeared from the back with a box of frames. "Your brother's entering the regional art fair," she said proudly. "He's so talented." I said nothing. My fingers ached from wrapping brushes in tissue paper. Ryan had skipped his chores all week. By 17, I was opening the shop before school and closing it after dinner. Ryan played guitar on the sidewalk, collecting tips in a coffee cup. Dad clapped him on the back. "Good hustle, son. Brings customers in." Mom smiled at me. "You should be proud of him." I was. Sometimes. Mostly. I was tired. At 22, I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for my architecture degree. Ryan flunked out of Ohio State that same year. Dad told people he came home to help with the family business. The business was me. He'd sleep through deliveries, then brag about managing suppliers. When the roof leaked, I fixed it. When the register jammed, I stayed late. Dad thanked me with a nod. He handed Ryan a $50 bill. One night, I came home from the diner shift and found Mom at the kitchen table. Bills spread like playing cards. "We're a little behind," she said softly. "Could you send some money next month just until sales pick up?" "How much? 1,500. She said it quickly, as if speed made it smaller. I wired the money the next morning. It became a habit. Years later, when Ryan opened his art cafe with Dad's blessing, I already knew how it would end. He called it a creative hub, borrowed $38,000 against the store's warehouse, and forgot to pay rent for 6 months. Mom called, voice shaking. "They're threatening foreclosure." I moved numbers around my own account, wrote a check, and told myself it was the last time. It wasn't. Dad hugged me at Christmas, said, "You saved our family." Ryan raised his glass. "Guess you finally did something useful." I smiled, because silence was cheaper than truth. After I graduated, the money transfers didn't stop. They just changed shape. I called them rent, though I didn't live there anymore. Every month. I wired $1,500 to Mom's account. She'd text, just until we catch up. Then, you're a blessing, blessings. I learned, had due dates. When I landed my first architecture job in Pittsburgh, Dad congratulated me with a new list of requests. You understand accounting. Could you review our supplier invoices? Keep the QuickBooks tidy. He said it like a favor, not free labor. I logged in one night, wine beside the keyboard, and stared at a mess of late payments and personal charges labeled business expenses, spa treatments, car repairs, even Ryan's truck insurance. I called Dad the next morning. You're mixing personal and store expenses. It's all family. Kara. Don't complicate things. Ryan chimed in on speaker. You're good at this. Numbers are your thing. Let me handle the creative direction. I bit back what I wanted to say. Creative direction doesn't pay invoices. Don't start, Mom interrupted gently. He's working so hard, I whispered. At what? No one answered. Months blurred into years. The more I earned, the more they expected. When bonuses came through, Dad would say, perfect timing. We're upgrading the store website. He never asked, just assumed. Then came the warehouse loss. Ryan's art cafe had collapsed, and the bank demanded payment. Dad called late one night. His voice trembled in a way that almost broke me. They'll take the property. Kara, your grandfather built that place with his hands. How much? $38,000. I sat at my desk, staring at the framed photo of all of us in front of the store. Ryan grinning. Dad's arm around him. Me half hidden on the side, holding the ledger. I'll cover it, I said quietly. He exhaled with relief. You're a good daughter. When the check cleared, no one mentioned it again. At Christmas, the store glowed with new lights. Ryan handed out mugs with the shop's logo done in Sun Crafts. I looked at the name, then at Dad. He smiled proudly. Finally feels official, doesn't it? I nodded, even as something small inside me cracked, like a ledger line drawn too thin. The morning after I left, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. By noon, there were 11 missed calls. By evening, 47. Dad's first voicemail was sharp. You think walking out fixes anything, you abandoned your family. Legacy doesn't build itself. The next message came from Mom. Her voice was soft, pleading. Your father didn't mean what he said. My back's been acting up again, and I can't lift the new shipment. Please, just come home for a few days. Then Ryan's voice smooth, upbeat, detached. Hey, sis, I've got a plan to save the store. We'll do a pop-up art show, maybe partner with local breweries. Need $10,000 to reserve the venue. You're good with numbers, so wire it over and I'll pay you back once it takes off. I stared at my phone, the message still playing, and hit delete. The calls didn't stop. The texts came next. Dad sending photos of unpaid bills. Mom sending heart emojis between guilt and prayer hands. At work, my assistant knocked on my office door. Your family keeps calling the front desk, she said. I smiled tightly. Block them. That night, the house was silent except for the hum of my laptop. I logged into the store's accounting software, my name still listed as administrator. Every overdue invoice blinked like a heartbeat. I hovered over the Settings tab, then clicked Revoke All Access. A warning flashed on screen. This action cannot be undone. I pressed Confirm. The notifications stopped a day later. The quiet that followed wasn't peace. Not yet. It was the sound of something breaking cleanly for the first time. Ryan showed up 3 days later. No warning, no call. Just the sound of his truck engine outside my office window. I was sketching lobby plans when the receptionist's voice cracked through the intercom. There's a man here says he's your brother. He walked in like he owned the place expensive jacket, the same grin that had always gotten him out of trouble. You've been dodging calls, he said. Dad's furious. Mom's worried sick. I didn't look up from my desk. You should leave. He ignored that. You changed the passwords. No one can access the accounts. That's correct. He laughed softly, like I was being dramatic. You always go nuclear. I just need temporary access. We're trying to fix things. Fix. I finally looked at him. You mean hide the mess you created? His smile faltered. Don't start with the guilt trip. I'm doing everything I can to keep us afloat. You're doing everything you can to keep you afloat, I said. You spent family money on branding consultants, workshops, and whatever fantasy made you feel important. The business was never about legacy. It was about control. He leaned on my desk, lowering his voice. Dad said you owe the family that much. You made good money off our name. I stood, slowly. Our name. You mean the one you slapped on mugs and websites while I paid the bills? Stop twisting it. You don't understand business. I opened a drawer, pulled out a sealed envelope, and slid it across the table. Then maybe you'll understand ownership. He frowned, tore it open. The certificate inside gleamed faintly under the light Dunn Designs LLC, registered under my name. His hands froze. You can't, this is theft. No, I said quietly. It's correction. The original trademark expired 2 months ago. You never renewed it. I did. His eyes narrowed. You stole the legacy. I stepped closer. I reclaimed what I built. Every invoice, every dollar. Every night I wired money while you called yourself creative director. That was me holding the walls up. Ryan's jaw clenched. You think this makes you better? No, I said. It makes me done. He stared at me for a long moment, like he was waiting for me to flinch. When I didn't, he laughed under his breath, but it didn't sound amused. Dad will never forgive you. Then we're even, I said. He slammed the envelope onto the desk and walked out. When the door shut, the room felt heavier, but also clearer. My reflection in the glass partition looked like someone I hadn't seen in years, steady, still, and finally unafraid. By the end of the week, the calls slowed. Then they stopped. I didn't mistake it for peace. It was the kind of quiet that follows a storm, when you're still waiting to see what's left standing. On Monday morning, my inbox filled with automated alerts from the store's vendors. Payment overdue, account on hold. By Tuesday, the city's public school district canceled its annual supply order, $9,800 gone in a single email. Dad called that night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail anyway. You think this is funny? The school backed out because of you. Get back here and clean up the mess you made. I listened once, then deleted it. The next message came from Mom. Quieter, breaking between words. Your father's angry, but he's scared too. We can't pay the mortgage this month. Please, Kara, just help us catch up. The phone buzzed again before I could breathe. Ryan, look, he said, his tone half apologetic, half selling something. We just need a short-term loan. 10, maybe 15 grand. Once I launch the new site, we'll be fine. I ended the call without replying. At work, my assistant asked if everything was all right. I told her yes. The lie sat heavy on my tongue. Each night, I scrolled through my phone, watching the string of unanswered messages grow longer. Dad's photos of empty shelves, Mom's updates about her back pain, Ryan's confident pitches turning into guilt. On Friday, a final text from Dad arrived. The lights go off tonight. Proud of yourself I didn't reply. I powered down the phone and left it face down on the table. The apartment hummed with its own rhythm refrigerator, city traffic, my own pulse. For the first time in years, no one needed me to fix anything. It didn't feel like freedom. Not yet. It felt like standing in a room after the electricity cuts out dark. Still, waiting for your eyes to adjust before you realize you can see. A week after the silence began, Someone knocked on my apartment door just after 9. When I opened it, Aunt Nadine stood there, hair windblown, eyes sharp, manila envelope clutched to her chest. "Your mother gave me your address," she said. "We need to talk." We sat at the kitchen table. She slid the envelope across the wood. "IRS correspondence. Your father listed me as a secondary contact years ago. I got the courtesy copy. I pulled out the papers. Dense print. Official seals. What am I looking at?" She leaned back. "A $52,000 deduction for consulting fees. Claimed over 2 years. Problem is, no consulting work ever happened. Ryan's branding expenses, his travel, his so-called workshop. They wrote it all off as business development." My throat tightened. "You're sure positive," she said. "The audit triggered a penalty. $18,000 due in 30 days. I exhaled slowly. "They can't pay that." "No," she said. "They can't even pay the mortgage. Without you? They're weeks from default." For a long moment, the only sound was the faint ticking of the wall clock. "They're drowning. Kara," she said finally. "But you're not the lifeboat." I pressed my fingers to my temples. "They'll call again when they realize I know." "They already did," Nadine said. "Your father called me yesterday. Told me you'd come to your senses soon." I laughed once, bitter and short. "That sounds like him." She reached across the table, covering my hand. "You've carried them long enough. If you go back now, they'll never learn. Love doesn't mean rescue." I nodded, though my chest ached with guilt. "What happens next?" "The IRS will send a final notice. After that, it's on them." She squeezed my hand before standing. "Don't pick up when they call. You've done enough." When the door closed behind her, I looked down at the papers again. The numbers blurred together, each one a reminder of every time I said yes when I should have said no. That night, I drafted a single email. Subject line: notice of financial separation. And for the first time, I wrote something only for myself. 2 weeks after Aunt Nadine's visit, I drove back to Ohio. Not for reconciliation, just closure. The highway was slick with salt, and the kind of winter light that makes everything look colder than it is. When I parked outside the store, half the sign was gone. The remaining letters read, "Done and so." Inside, shelves stood bare, the air thick with dust and regret. Dad was behind the counter, calculator in hand, as if pretending to balance numbers might make them real again. He looked up, surprise flickering to anger. "So the prodigal daughter returns. You finally here to fix what you broke." I set my bag on the counter. "I didn't break it, Dad. I stopped funding it." "Funding," he repeated, incredulous. "You think this place ran on your charity? We built this together." Ryan came from the back room, sleeves rolled up, face pale. "You didn't answer my texts. We needed help, just a bridge loan. The audit, I know about the audit." I cut in. 52,000 in fake deductions. 18,000 in penalties. You called it creativity. The IRS calls it fraud. Dad slammed the calculator down. "Don't talk to me like I'm a criminal. We were trying to survive." "You were trying to live off me," I said. "There's a difference." Mom's voice drifted from the stairs. "Kara, please, not like this." She looked smaller than I remembered. "Your father's been under so much stress." Stress. I took out the folder from my bag, proof of every transfer, every deposit, every wire labeled temporary. I laid it open on the counter. "That's what my stress bought you. Every number, every month." Ryan stared at the papers, jaw tightening. "You're really keeping score." "Yes," I said, "because someone had to." Dad's face reddened. "After everything we gave you." "You gave me lessons," I said quietly, "on loyalty, on guilt, on how to work until there's nothing left. Congratulations." I learned them well. No one spoke. The clock above the register ticked once, sharp and loud. I closed the folder, pushed it toward Dad. "I'm not your safety net anymore. Figure it out." I turned to leave. Mom's voice broke behind me. Kara, where will you go? I paused at the doorway. Home, I said. For once. That's not here. The bell above the door rang as I stepped out, a thin, metallic sound echoing into the cold air, final, small, and true. 6 months later, I signed the closing papers on a townhouse in Shadyside. 2 stories, narrow staircase, sunlight that reached the kitchen by mid-morning. The agent slid the keys across the table. Congratulations, Ms. Dunn. You're officially a homeowner. Thank you, I said, though my hands shook slightly. I wasn't sure if it was disbelief or relief. That night, Drew came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. He was the only person who hadn't tried to tell me what to do, just listened. He set the food down and glanced around the half-furnished space. You did it, he said. All yours. For once. Yeah, I said. No shared accounts, no conditions attached. He leaned against the counter. How's your dad working nights at FedEx? I said. He scans packages till 6 in the morning. Mom sells framed watercolors at the weekend market. Ryan's apprenticing at a small frame shop in Lakewood. They're all surviving. Do you talk to them? I shook my head. Not yet. I think silence is the only language we all understand right now. He nodded, then handed me a glass. To peace that doesn't ask for payment. I smiled at that soft, almost surprised. We ate sitting on the floor, the room echoing slightly. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine. Later, I opened my laptop to review sketches for a new project, an urban renewal design downtown. The client wanted spaces that balanced preservation and progress. I stared at the blueprints, thinking how those 2 words fit more than architecture. Drew glanced at the screen. You're back at it already. I nodded. Building is what I do best. He smiled, quiet and proud. The city outside hummed faintly, alive and distant. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a piece of someone else's foundation. I was starting from level ground. It arrived on a Wednesday plain envelope, postmarked from Ohio. Handwriting I hadn't seen in months. I set it on the counter and stared at it while the kettle hissed. When I finally tore it open, a photograph slid out. The picture showed the old storefront rebuilt. New paint, new glass. The sign reading Dunn Frame Co. Beneath it, Ryan stood beside Dad, both of them thinner, older, but smiling. A short note was written on the back. Starting over. Maybe now I get it. Drew glanced up from the sofa. From them, I nodded. Ryan. He waited, cautious. Are you going to write back? I folded the letter once, twice. No. I think that's the reply. He set down his mug. You sound lighter. I'm not angry anymore. I said. They're living their version of consequence. I'm living mine. He smiled slightly. That sounds like peace. Maybe it was. I slipped the photo into a drawer beside my business license for Dunn Designs, the one I'd fought to claim. The 2 pieces of paper didn't clash, they balanced each other. Proof that both stories could exist without one erasing the other. Later, as the evening settled in, Drew asked, if they called tomorrow, what would you say I thought about Dad's voice? Mom's silence. Ryan's grin softening in that photo. I'd tell them I'm proud they're standing, and that I hope they keep standing. He nodded. That's more generous than I'd be. I'm not doing it for them, I said quietly. I'm doing it so the story ends clean. The kettle clicked off. I poured the water, the sound steady and calm. Outside, the streetlights came on one by one. I watched them flicker through the window, each glow a small reminder of what stayed lit after everything else went dark.